Hook. What if the emperor who inherited the golden age of Rome didn't just betray his father's legacy? He turned the entire empire into his personal slaughterhouse of madness, depravity, and delusion. The movie Gladiator painted Commodus as a jealous, backstabbing tyrant who craved the arena and murdered his way to the throne. But the real man was infinitely worse. Hollywood had to tone it down because no studio could show the full truth without losing their audience. This is the story of the most disturbing things Emperor Commodus actually did, acts so twisted, so vile, that they shocked even the hardened senators of ancient Rome. By the end of this video, you'll understand why his own closest advisors finally decided he had to die. If you're ready for the unfiltered history that makes Gladiator look like a bedtime story, keep watching. Commodus wasn't born a monster. He entered the world in 161 AD as the son of Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor whose reign is still remembered as Rome's golden age of wisdom and stability. Marcus had spent years grooming his son to rule with honor and restraint. But when Marcus died in 180 AD, some ancient sources hint Commodus may have even hastened it. The 19-year-old heir immediately abandoned the frontier wars his father had fought so bravely. Instead of leading legions, Commodus rushed back to Rome and handed the real work of governing to corrupt favorites while he indulged every dark impulse. What set Commodus apart from almost every other emperor was his obsession with the Colosseum. He didn't just watch gladiators, he became one. Dressed in lion skins as the living reincarnation of Hercules, he stepped into the arena hundreds of times. Ancient historians like Cassius Dio, who actually lived through these spectacles, record that Commodus claimed over 12,000 victories, though most were pure theater. He would order gladiators to fight with wooden swords or blunt weapons while he wielded steel. Opponents were often already wounded or handicapped before the bout even began, making sure the emperor never faced real danger. And when he grew bored with standard fights, he escalated in ways that turned the arena into a house of horrors. Picture this. Commodus once gathered every man in Rome who had lost his feet to disease or injury, veterans, civilians, anyone disabled. He had them bound together, dressed their stumps to look like serpent bodies, and handed them sponges instead of rocks. Then, pretending they were giants from myth, he clubbed them to death one by one while the crowd watched. On other days, he slaughtered exotic animals by the hundreds. 5 hippopotami and 2 elephants in just 2 days, plus giraffes, rhinoceroses, and ostriches. Once, after decapitating an ostrich with a single swing, he marched straight to the senators' seats, waved the bloody head at them, and stared them down as if to say, "You're next." The message was crystal clear. Senators who laughed or even sneezed at the wrong moment could find themselves on his execution list. His bloodlust didn't stay confined to the arena. Commodus turned the imperial palace into a den of unimaginable excess. He kept a harem of 300 women and 300 young boys, selected purely for their beauty and taken from their families across the empire. These were essentially sex slaves forced to serve his every whim during nights of non-stop debauchery. Ancient writers describe feasts so grotesque that Commodus would order 2 hunchbacked slaves stripped naked, coated in mustard, and used as living platters for his guests to eat from. He even played at being a surgeon, slicing open living men with scalpels just to watch their insides, or ordering servants burned alive in ovens for bringing him lukewarm bathwater. One attendant who drew a cold bath as a boy reportedly ended up roasted in the palace furnace. Paranoia consumed him. After a failed assassination plot involving his own sister Lucilla, Commodus unleashed waves of executions that wiped out entire families. He destroyed the wealthy Quintilii brothers and their relatives, men, women, and children, erasing their names from history. Anyone who looked even slightly like a fugitive he was hunting could be dragged away and killed. He executed his own wife Crispina on trumped-up charges of adultery. Wealthy Romans lived in terror. Commodus needed their money to fund his endless games and building projects, so fabricated treason charges became a quick way to seize estates and refill the treasury his neglect had emptied. But nothing reveals his insanity more than his megalomania. In 192 AD, after a massive fire swept through Rome, Commodus declared the city reborn as his personal colony. He renamed it Colonia Commodiana, Commodus's colony. Then he went further. Every single month of the year was stripped of its ancient names and renamed after his own titles. Lucius, Aelius, Aurelius, Commodus, Augustus, Herculeus, Romanus, Exupertorius, Amazonius, Invictus, Felix, and Pius. The legions became the Commodian legions. The Senate was the Commodian Fortunate Senate. Even the Roman people themselves were now Commodiani. He replaced the head of the giant Colossus of Nero statue with his own face and added an inscription boasting that he was the only left-handed fighter to conquer 12,000 men. Statues of him as Hercules flooded the city. He demanded to be worshipped as a living god while he ignored plagues, famines, and the growing threats on the borders. For 12 long years, Rome endured this nightmare. The man who should have been the guardian of the empire had become its greatest curse. Cassius Dio, watching it all unfold, wrote that Commodus turned Rome from a kingdom of gold to one of iron and rust. The Senate lived in constant fear. The people grew restless as bread prices soared and spectacles replaced real leadership. Yet Commodus felt untouchable until his own inner circle finally snapped. On New Year's Eve 192 AD, his mistress Marcia slipped poison into his wine. He vomited it up in the baths, still alive but weakened. The conspirators then sent in Narcissus, a powerful wrestler and Commodus's own training partner, to finish the job. Naked and helpless in the bath, the self-proclaimed Hercules and God Emperor was strangled to death like a common criminal. His body was dragged through the streets before being dumped in the Tiber. The Senate immediately ordered damnatio memoriae. His name erased from every monument, his statues smashed, his legacy condemned. It was the only way they could reclaim some dignity after years of terror. Commodus's death didn't bring peace. It triggered the year of the 5 emperors and accelerated Rome's long slide toward chaos. But his reign remains one of the darkest chapters in Roman history. A warning about what happens when absolute power falls into the hands of someone who cares only for his own twisted pleasures. So which of these horrors shocked you the most? The rigged arena massacres, the living human platters, the renaming of an entire civilization, or the disabled men clubbed to death for sport? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more deep dives into the real stories behind Hollywood history, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.